The voicemail was only 7 seconds long. No words, just breathing. Detective Mara Ellison had heard that sound before, years ago, in a case no one officially remembered. This time, the call came from a phone that had been deactivated for over a decade, and it was addressed to her by name. Before this story continues, take a moment to subscribe to Midnight Casefiles. New cases surface every week, some buried, some erased, and some never meant to be found. Now, the case file opens. The call came in at 2:14 a.m., slipping past the precinct's automated filters like it knew exactly where the gaps were. Mara Ellison was still awake, seated at her kitchen table with a mug of coffee she hadn't touched in an hour, the city humming faintly through the window. Ravenwood never truly slept. It only lowered its voice. Her phone vibrated once. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. Instinct stopped her finger mid-motion, the kind of instinct you earn, not inherit. She answered. Static. Then breathing. Slow. Controlled. Deliberate. Not panic. Not fear. Someone trying very hard to stay calm. After 7 seconds, the line went dead. Mara didn't move. She didn't need to replay it to know what she'd heard. She'd cataloged too many sounds like that over the years, final moments captured by accident or design. What unsettled her wasn't the call itself. It was the timestamp attached to the caller ID. The number had been disconnected in 2011. She pulled her laptop closer and ran the digits through the department's legacy system. The result made her jaw tighten. Property of the Ravenwood Municipal Archives, issued to an evidence storage wing that had been sealed after a fire 12 years ago. The Silence Protocol wing. No official report had ever explained what burned or why the damage records were missing. The building had been condemned quietly. Too quietly. Her phone vibrated again. This time, a text. You closed this once. You don't get to close it again. Mara stood, already reaching for her coat. She didn't bother turning off the kitchen light. She knew she wouldn't be back before morning. The archive sat at the edge of the old civic district, surrounded by buildings that had outlived their purpose. Yellow tape still clung to rusted railings, sun-bleached and ignored. She parked a block away and walked the rest, the air cold enough to sting. The side entrance was unlocked. That alone told her this wasn't coincidence. Inside, the building smelled like dust and old paper, the kind of place where history went to be forgotten properly. Her flashlight beam cut across collapsed shelving and scorched concrete. Then she saw it. Fresh footprints layered over ash that should have been undisturbed for years. Someone had been here recently. In the far corner, a single evidence locker stood open. Inside was a phone. Still warm. Before she could reach it, footsteps echoed from the upper level. Measured, unhurried. Not running, not hiding. Waiting. Mara raised her weapon. Ravenwood PD, she said evenly. Step into the light. A voice answered from the darkness above. Still leading with the badge, it said. Some things really don't change. She recognized the voice immediately. Detective Jonah Reed hadn't worked in Ravenwood for 6 years, and he wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the Silence Protocol.
Jonah Reed stepped into the spill of Mara's flashlight like he hadn't been gone at all. Same posture, same careful stillness, the kind that came from learning when not to move. His coat was darker than she remembered, worn at the seams, like it had traveled farther than its owner wanted to admit. He raised his hands slowly, not in surrender, but acknowledgement. Easy, he said. If I wanted you hurt, you wouldn't have answered the phone. Mara didn't lower her weapon. She shifted her stance instead, feet planted, angle corrected. You broke into a sealed municipal archive, she said. Used a deadline to call me. Start talking. Jonah glanced toward the open evidence locker behind her. The phone inside vibrated once, then went still. You know what that wing was, he said, or you wouldn't be here. I know what they said it was, Mara replied. I also know every report after the fire was scrubbed. Jonah nodded, because the fire wasn't the incident, it was the erasure. He moved closer, slow enough not to trigger her. The flashlight caught his face fully now. He looked thinner, older in the eyes, the kind of aging that didn't show up in mirrors, but lived behind them. They called it the Silence Protocol, he continued. Not officially, nothing in writing. It was a fallback procedure, used when a case threatened to expose institutional liability across departments. Mara felt the words settle heavily. Institutional. You're saying this wasn't about criminals, she said. It was about containment. Jonah gave a humorless smile. That word again. He reached into his coat and produced a folded document, yellowed at the edges. He didn't hand it to her. He placed it on a collapsed desk between them and slid it forward. Mara glanced down. No letterhead, no signatures. Just a flow diagram. Witness identified. Risk assessed. Outcome redirected. At the bottom, a single line had been stamped in faded ink. Protocol complete. This was never meant to be permanent, just enough to quiet things down until attention shifted, but it worked too well. Mara flipped the page. Names jumped out at her. Some she recognized immediately. Others lived in the back of her mind, cases that had never felt finished but were officially closed anyway. People who vanished between interviews, testimony that dissolved into recantations, files that ended with phrases like insufficient corroboration and unreliable witness. How long? She asked. Jonah didn't answer right away. The first reference I found was 19 years ago. The last confirmed use was 6 months ago. Mara looked up sharply. That's after the oversight reforms. Jonah met her gaze. Reforms don't kill habits, they just rename them. Footsteps echoed faintly somewhere above them. Not close, not urgent, but present. Both of them registered it at the same time. Mara angled her flashlight upward, beams slicing across the broken balcony. Who else knows you're here? She asked. Too many, Jonah said quietly, and not enough. He stepped back, putting space between them again. Listen to me carefully. The phone you heard, that wasn't a victim. Mara's grip tightened. It was a failsafe, Jonah continued. Every time the protocol was triggered, a final record was created. Audio, time-stamped, stored offline. Not to preserve evidence, but to track compliance. Breathing, Mara said slowly. That's what they recorded. 7 seconds, Jonah confirmed. Long enough to prove the subject was alive at the moment of containment. Short enough to be deniable. The sound replayed in her mind. Controlled, calm. Someone trying not to be afraid. And now? She asked. Now those records are waking up, Jonah said. Systems update, storage audits. Something flagged the archive as incomplete. Mara exhaled slowly through her nose. So someone decided to clean up. Yes, Jonah said. Or finish what they started. A distant metallic clang echoed through the building, closer this time. Not footsteps, a door. Closing. Jonah turned toward the stairwell. We don't have much time. Mara finally lowered her weapon, just enough to move. You disappear for 6 years, she said, and you come back with this. Jonah met her eyes. I left because I saw where this ended. I came back because it didn't. The lights flickered overhead. Once, twice, then stabilized. From somewhere deep in the archive, a voice crackled through an old intercom system that should have been dead. Unauthorized presence detected. Mara felt the building tighten around them, like a lung preparing to exhale. Jonah didn't run. Neither did she.
The archive didn't lock down the way Mara expected. There were no alarms, no flashing lights, no dramatic barriers sliding into place. Instead, the building responded the way systems always did when they didn't want attention. Quietly, efficiently, and without explanation. The intercom crackled once more, then went silent, leaving behind a hum so faint it felt imagined. Jonah exhaled slowly. That wasn't a warning, he said. That was a timestamp. Mara turned toward the stairwell. Meaning? Meaning someone just logged us as present, Jonah replied. Not trespassing, not intruders. Participants. They moved deeper into the archive, their footsteps echoing against concrete that had absorbed too many sounds over the years. The air felt heavier here, stale in a way that suggested long-term neglect rather than simple abandonment. Mara scanned the walls as they passed. Old signage still clung to rusted brackets, evidence intake, records processing, audio storage, but every door beneath them had been welded shut, except one. At the end of the corridor, a single door stood ajar, its hinges scorched but intact. A soft green indicator glowed above the frame. Power. Live power. Jonah slowed. That wasn't on when I was here last week. You were here last week? Mara asked. Jonah didn't look at her. I said too many people knew. I didn't say I was the first. Inside the room, servers lined the walls like silent sentries, their indicator lights blinking in uneven patterns. Most were dead. A few weren't. A terminal sat at the center desk, screen awake, cursor blinking patiently as if waiting for instruction.
Mara felt the shift immediately. This wasn't cleanup, this was engagement. She stepped closer and read the header displayed across the screen. Silence protocol, compliance review active. Below it, a list began to populate. Dates, case identifiers, audio files, 7-second clips, one after another. Jonah swallowed. They're running an audit. Why now? Mara asked. Because someone outside the system asked the wrong question, Jonah said. And systems hate unanswered questions. A new entry appeared at the bottom of the list. Current session, open. Mara's phone vibrated in her coat pocket. She didn't answer it. She didn't need to. She already knew who it was. Lieutenant Briggs' voice came through her voicemail seconds later, strained but controlled. Ellison, if you're anywhere near the old civic district, you need to leave. Now. Orders just came down. Your access is suspended pending review. Mara closed her eyes briefly. Jonah watched her. They moved fast. They always do, she replied. They just usually pretended slower. The terminal chimed softly. Another message appeared. Subject, Ellison, Mara. Status, active oversight. Jonah stepped back. That's new. Mara stared at her name on the screen, feeling the familiar tightening in her chest. Not fear, but recognition. This was the moment when procedure stopped being neutral. This isn't about stopping us, she said. It's about documenting us. Jonah nodded. Which means whatever comes next needs witnesses. The sound of boots echoed from above. Multiple sets this time. Coordinated. Not rushing, but not hiding either. Ravenwood PD, a voice called down the stairwell. Detective Ellison, step into view. Mara looked at Jonah. If we walk out together, they isolate us separately. If you stay, Jonah replied, they bury this room. Mara glanced back at the terminal, at the blinking cursor still waiting for input. She reached out and pulled a small flash drive from her pocket. Old-fashioned, untraceable, the kind of thing she'd learned to carry after years of watching systems eat evidence alive. She handed it to Jonah. You get this out, she said. Whatever happens next, this doesn't stay here. Jonah hesitated. They'll come after you. They already are, Mara replied. The difference is now they have to do it openly. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Jonah took the drive and slipped it into his coat. I'll disappear, he said, but not quietly. Mara allowed herself a thin smile. I wouldn't expect anything less. She turned toward the stairwell just as the first uniformed officer came into view, followed by 2 internal affairs agents she recognized immediately. Their expressions were professional, careful, already decided. Mara stepped forward, hands visible, posture calm. Behind her, the terminal chimed again. Compliance log updated. Somewhere in the system, the case officially changed classification from historical to active, and Ravenwood took notice.
The conference room smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee, the kind of place where decisions were framed as necessities instead of choices. Mara sat alone at the far end of the table, her badge and service weapon resting in front of her like exhibits. No one had asked for them directly. Someone had simply gestured, and the gesture had carried weight. Across from her, 3 people she barely knew flipped through folders that looked heavier than they needed to be. Internal affairs had a way of over-preparing when the outcome was already decided. The deputy chief sat at the head of the table, hands folded, expression neutral enough to pass for professionalism. This is a temporary administrative measure, he said. Standard procedure. Mara nodded once. She'd learned early not to waste words on phrases designed to end conversation. Pending review, he continued, your access credentials are suspended. You are instructed to remain available, but refrain from independent investigative activity. Independent, Mara repeated softly. The deputy chief's jaw tightened. You understand the term. She did. Independent meant uncontrolled. It meant unlogged. It meant dangerous. He slid a document toward her. The header read involuntary leave, non-punitive. Her name appeared twice on the first page. The language was careful, almost kind. Mara didn't sign it. I was ordered to leave an active site, she said, before those orders existed. That site was inactive, one of the IA officers interjected. Condemned. And powered, Mara replied, with a live audit running. Silence followed. Not denial, avoidance. The deputy chief cleared his throat. Detective Ellison, the systems you're describing are legacy artifacts, outdated processes. Whatever activity you believe you witnessed was documented, Mara said, by your own infrastructure. Another pause, longer this time. We are not here to debate interpretations, he said. We are here to stabilize. Mara finally leaned forward. Stabilize what? The question hung there, unanswered, because answering it would have required honesty. They dismissed her 10 minutes later without resolution. No charges, no clearance. Just suspension dressed up as concern. As she stood to leave, the IA officer nearest the doors lowered his voice. "Off the record," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Stop digging." Mara collected her badge and weapon. "Off the record," I replied. I never stopped. Outside, the city moved on like it always did. Traffic, coffee shops, people arguing into phones about things that mattered to them. Ravenwood didn't know it was being corrected. Most cities never did. Her phone buzzed the moment she stepped onto the sidewalk. No caller ID. One message. "The record has been adjusted. You should do the same." Mara deleted it without replying. She drove home, changed clothes, and shut off her department-issued phone. The silence that followed felt artificial, like a room sealed too tightly. She turned on her personal laptop and logged into an old account she hadn't used in years. Jonah Reed. Offline. She tried again. Nothing. That was expected. Jonah disappearing wasn't panic. It was strategy. She pulled up public databases instead. Court calendars, procurement notices, archived memos. The silence protocol didn't exist on paper, but its shadow did. Budget anomalies, relocation services paid through unrelated departments, emergency authorizations that expired before they could be questioned. Patterns didn't need names. 2 hours in, her screen flickered, then stabilized. A new window opened without her input. Black background, white text. "You were advised." Mara didn't flinch. She closed the window, disconnected the network, and leaned back in her chair. This was the part no one talked about, the moment when truth stopped being collaborative and became personal. Somewhere across the city, Jonah was moving. She didn't know where, and that was the point. Whatever he had taken from the archive was now outside their reach, which meant the system would pivot. And systems always retaliated through narrative. Her doorbell rang. Once. Then again. Mara stood, hand hovering near the counter where her phone used to be. Through the peephole, she saw a woman in a tailored coat holding a slim folder. No badge, no uniform. Just a practice smile. "Ms. Ellison," the woman called through the door. "I'm here on behalf of the city." Mara didn't open it. "About your employment status," she added, "and some misunderstandings we'd like to resolve." Mara rested her forehead briefly against the doorframe, breathing slowly. The system wasn't done with her. It was just changing tactics.
The article went live at 6:03 a.m. Mara saw it before she finished her first cup of coffee, the headline glowing on her laptop screen like a quiet accusation. "Former detective placed on leave following procedural breach." No name in the headline. No details in the body that would require verification. Just implication, wrapped in neutral language and sourced from a city official familiar with the matter. She read it once, then again. The wording was careful, almost sympathetic. It spoke of stress, of overwork, of a decorated officer who had struggled to adapt after a series of difficult cases. It praised the department for acting with restraint and concern. The silence protocol didn't erase her. It reframed her. By the time she closed the article, 3 more had appeared. Different outlets, same language, same anonymous sourcing. A chorus tuned by the same hand. Her phone buzzed. This time, it was personal. Unknown number. A text message appeared. "This version is safer for everyone." Mara set the phone down without responding. She stood at the window and watched the city wake up. Delivery trucks, joggers, people unaware that truth was being smoothed into something easier to live with. Her laptop chimed softly. A new message appeared in an encrypted window she hadn't opened. "They're moving faster than expected. J." She exhaled slowly. Jonah was alive, active, and close enough to watch the ripple effects. She typed back, "They're building a case against me." The reply came almost immediately. "No, they're building distance." Mara frowned. Distance from credibility, from authority, from access. Jonah sent another message. "Check the witness transfer logs from 3 years ago. Look for emergency health reclassifications." Mara didn't have official access anymore, but she had something better: time and familiarity. She pulled archived public records and cross-referenced them with hospital intake data, relocation permits, and budget reports buried in municipal finance summaries. The pattern emerged slowly, then all at once. Witnesses didn't disappear. They were absorbed, declared unstable, medically unfit, moved under protective authority that never expired. Not silenced, managed. One name appeared twice under different spellings. Mara leaned forward.
She remembered the man, a transit worker, mid-40s, had reported irregular night activity in restricted maintenance tunnels. His initial statement had been flagged as unreliable due to sleep disruption and stress response. Jonah's message flashed again. He's still alive. They never expected anyone to look back. Mara's pulse quickened. Alive meant leverage. It also meant risk. Another message arrived. This one a location pin. I am not going to him. You aren't either. Watch from a distance. Mara didn't argue. Jonah was thinking in layers now. The way people did when they understood the system's reach wasn't theoretical anymore. She grabbed her keys and left the apartment, moving through side streets and public spaces. Never straight, never predictable. The address Jonah had sent wasn't a hideout. It was a long-term care facility on the edge of the city. Clean, modern, and aggressively ordinary. From across the street, Mara watched staff cycle in and out. No guards, no marked security. But she noticed the details. The cameras positioned inward instead of outward. The absence of visitors. The single unmarked sedan parked near the service entrance. Containment without walls. Her phone vibrated again. They'll paint you as unstable, me as a rogue, and this is a misunderstanding. Mara typed one line back. What do we do? There was a pause this time, longer than before. We changed the audience. Mara leaned back in her seat, eyes fixed on the facility entrance. Changing the audience meant risk. It meant exposure. It meant taking something designed to live in silence and forcing it into light. Her phone chimed once more. I'm leaking a piece. Not everything. Just enough. Mara closed her eyes briefly. Once you broke containment, there was no resetting it. Across the street, the unmarked sedan's engine turned over. The system was adjusting, and Jonah Reed had just made his first public move.
The leak didn't explode the way people imagined leaks were supposed to. There were no sirens, no sudden resignations, no frantic press conferences. It surfaced quietly, embedded inside a late-night investigative column from a regional outlet that prided itself on context over outrage. The headline was careful. Questions raised over legacy witness protection practices. No accusations, no names, just documentation. Mara read it twice, recognizing Jonah's hand immediately. He hadn't released audio. He hadn't mentioned the protocol by name. He'd chosen invoices, relocation orders, and medical reclassification forms, the unglamorous bones of bureaucracy that couldn't be waved away as conspiracy. It was just enough. By morning, the article had been cited by 3 larger outlets. By noon, the city issued a statement acknowledging historical procedural inconsistencies and announcing an internal review. By evening, the narrative had shifted again. Not toward truth, toward blame. Mara felt it before she saw it. The subtle pivot in language, the reintroduction of her name, this time framed as context. Former detective at Center of Review, previously flagged for conduct concerns. She stared at the screen, jaw tight. Conduct concerns. The phrase was vague by design. It invited speculation without requiring evidence. Her phone buzzed. Jonah. They're going to offer up a face. It won't be the right one. Mara typed back. Me? The reply came slower this time. Not yet. Someone lower. Someone clean enough to survive the fall. The system didn't destroy itself when threatened. It shed weight. Mara drove to the precinct without entering it, parking across the street and watching from her car. She saw the activity immediately. Reporters clustered near the entrance, a temporary podium being set up under the city seal. Someone was about to speak. An hour later, the announcement aired live. A mid-level administrator from Records and Compliance stood before the cameras, shoulders squared, voice steady. He spoke of legacy oversights, of isolated decision-making, of failures in supervision. He took responsibility with practiced sincerity. Mara recognized him. He'd signed off on exactly 1 relocation order tied to the protocol. 1, years ago. A box checker. A man who had followed instructions without asking why. He was being offered as closure. Jonah's message arrived as the press conference ended. That's the firebreak. They'll stop there if they can. Mara watched the administrator step away from the podium, escorted but not restrained. His career would be over. His life narrowed. The architects would remain untouched. Her phone rang. A number she recognized now. City Legal Affairs. She let it go to voicemail. The message was polite, almost warm. Detective Ellison, this is Deputy Counsel Ward. We'd like to clarify your status and offer guidance during this confusing period. Please call us back. Guidance. Translation. Boundaries. Mara didn't return the call. Instead, she opened the encrypted channel again. They're sacrificing the wrong man, she typed. And they know it. Jonah replied after a pause. That's how you know it's working. Mara leaned back, staring at the ceiling of her car.
The leak had done what it was supposed to do. It forced movement. But movement didn't mean progress. It meant reaction. And reactions could be steered. Another message from Jonah followed. I found the audit trail they missed. It doesn't lead up. It leads sideways. Mara straightened. Sideways where? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Private contractors. Civilian intermediaries. People who never show up in uniform. Mara closed her eyes briefly. That explained the insulation, the deniability, the way authority dissolved just before accountability. If we go there, she typed, they can't claim internal error anymore. Jonah's response came without hesitation. Exactly. And they won't protect us after that. Mara watched the reporters disperse across the street, satisfied for now. The city would sleep easier tonight, believing the problem had a name and a resignation attached to it. But beneath that calm, the system was recalculating. She started the engine. Then we don't ask for protection, she murmured to herself. Her phone buzzed one last time. Next move is yours. But once we make it, there's no going back. Mara pulled into traffic, the city folding around her like it always did. The system had chosen its sacrifice. Now it was her turn to choose where the fire spread next.
The contractor's name didn't appear in any police database. It surfaced instead in a procurement ledger, buried beneath infrastructure upgrades and disaster response logistics. One of those companies that existed everywhere and nowhere at once. No marked vehicles, no uniforms, no press releases, just invoices, routed through third-party agencies that specialized in risk mitigation and field compliance. Jonah sent the file in pieces. They don't call themselves enforcers. They call themselves facilitators. Mara scrolled through the document slowly, recognizing the pattern immediately. These weren't mercenaries or hired muscle. They were former professionals, ex-police, ex-military, ex-intelligence, people who understood chain of command and had learned how to operate without one, people who didn't ask questions anymore. The protocol doesn't remove people, Jonah continued. It moves them, and when movement fails, they arrive. Mara leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. So this is the line, she murmured, where oversight ends. Her phone buzzed before she could finish the thought. Unknown number. She didn't answer. A message appeared instead. You've been very busy, Detective. Her jaw tightened. The phrasing wasn't threatening. It didn't need to be. It was acknowledgement. She typed one word back. Who is this? The reply came slower, deliberate. People who clean up after mistakes, and you're creating them. Mara didn't respond. She closed the laptop and stood, moving through the apartment without turning on lights. Outside, the street looked the same as it always had. Parked cars, porch lights, a city pretending nothing was wrong. Her phone buzzed again. This is the last warning. Stay on leave. Let the review finish. Mara laughed quietly once. You don't warn people you can't touch, she said aloud. She grabbed her coat and left the apartment through the back stairwell, emerging 2 blocks away where her car was parked. As she drove, she noticed it almost immediately, the sedan behind her, keeping distance, never accelerating, never falling back. Professional. She made 3 turns without signaling. The sedan followed. Jonah's message arrived as if on cue. They've shifted from containment to deterrence. Mara's hands tightened on the wheel. Me or you, she typed. The response was instant. Yes. She took a sudden right into a parking structure, cutting the engine halfway in. The sedan rolled past the entrance without slowing. Not pursuing. Not yet. She sat there for a full minute, breathing slowly, counting heartbeats. This wasn't a hit. This was posture. A reminder that the system had reached beyond paperwork. Her phone vibrated one last time. They won't touch you until the story stops moving, but they'll touch everything around you. Mara stared at the concrete wall ahead of her, the echo of the engine still ringing in her ears. This was the point of no return, the moment when silence became the safer option. And she refused it. She typed back, "Then we move it faster." Jonah didn't reply immediately. When he did, the message was shorter than any before. Good, because I found who signs their checks. Mara started the engine again. Whatever came next wouldn't be procedural. It would be personal. The name didn't come with a dramatic reveal. No red circles, no shouted realization. It arrived the way truth usually did in cases like this, buried in a spreadsheet no one expected to be read all the way through. Jonah sent it at 3:41 a.m. Found it. Not a department, not a division, a foundation. Mara sat at her kitchen table, the city still dark outside, coffee untouched. She opened the file and followed the trail backward the way Jonah had taught her. Never forward, never from the headline. Payments flowed through municipal contracts, then vanished into shell companies, then reemerged as public safety grants, issued by an organization with an immaculate website and a board full of respected names. The Harrington Civic Trust. Mara recognized it instantly. Everyone did. The trust funded after-school programs, disaster relief, and urban renewal projects. Its logo appeared on plaques outside libraries and hospitals. Its annual gala was a fixture on the city's social calendar. It also sat just far enough outside government to avoid oversight. Jonah's next message appeared. They don't order anything. They recommend. The money makes it happen. Mara scrolled through the board members, former mayors, retired judges, a police commissioner it stepped down 5 years earlier to focus on philanthropy. She felt something cold settle behind her ribs. This wasn't corruption in the usual sense. This was infrastructure, a parallel system designed to outlive elections and scandals alike. Her phone buzzed. This time, it wasn't anonymous. Private number, restricted. She answered. Detective Ellison, a man's voice said smoothly. Or should I say, former detective. Mara didn't speak. I'm calling because there seems to be some confusion, he continued. You've been asking questions about programs that don't concern you. Everything concerns me, Mara replied. That's kind of the job. A soft chuckle. Not anymore. She pictured him without seeing him. Tailored suit, careful posture, someone who'd never raised his voice in his life. You and your associate are misinterpreting old safeguards, he said. Things put in place to protect the city from instability. By disappearing witnesses, Mara asked. By preventing panic, he corrected. By controlling narratives before they spiral. Mara leaned back in her chair. You don't control narratives. You erase people. A pause. Short. Calculated. We minimize harm, the voice said. And right now, you're creating it. Jonah's message flashed on her screen. He's talking to you because they're worried. They don't do that often. Mara smiled faintly. You didn't call to threaten me, she said into the phone. You called to negotiate. Another pause. Longer this time. Detective Ellison, the man said, his tone tightening just slightly. This can end cleanly. You walk away, your record is restored quietly, your colleague disappears into a consultancy somewhere far from here. And the protocol? Mara asked. It becomes history, he replied. Unexamined, like most things. Mara closed her eyes briefly. Then no, she said. It doesn't end cleanly. Her phone vibrated again. A new message from Jonah. I'm uploading everything. Not to the press, to the oversight network. National. They can't contain that. Mara's pulse spiked. Jonah, wait. But the line was already dead. The man on the phone exhaled slowly. That was unwise. So was calling me, Mara replied. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far off. Not for her, not yet. But the city had shifted. She could feel it, like a pressure change before a storm. You've crossed a line, the voice said. Mara stood, moving toward the window. You drew it. The call ended. Her laptop chimed as files began uploading automatically. Financial records, internal memos, contract agreements. The truth, stripped of narrative, laid bare. For the first time since this began, the system didn't respond immediately. It hesitated. And that hesitation told Mara everything she needed to know. They hadn't expected her to say no.
The first response didn't come from the city. It came from everywhere else. Oversight agencies acknowledged receipt within minutes. Federal ethics offices requested supplemental documentation. Independent auditors issued formal notices that could not be ignored or delayed by municipal authority. The silence protocol, stripped of its euphemisms, had crossed a threshold no local system could contain. Mara watched it unfold from her apartment, news feeds refreshing too quickly to follow in real time. The Harrington Civic Trust released a statement before dawn, denouncing the uploads as grossly misinterpreted materials and affirming its commitment to transparency. Within an hour, 3 board members resigned. By noon, 2 of them had retracted their resignations. Chaos didn't favor anyone. Her phone rang constantly. Former colleagues, reporters, numbers she didn't recognize. She answered none of them. She knew better now. When systems panicked, they reached for voices they thought they could control. At 10:17 a.m., the retaliation came. A warrant. Not for arrest, for seizure. Mara read the notification on her screen twice, her name printed neatly beneath a judicial header. The language was precise.
Her personal devices were now classified as potential evidence in an ongoing inquiry into unauthorized data dissemination. They weren't calling her a criminal, they were isolating her. Jonah's message arrived seconds later. They're trying to freeze you out, take your voice, make you a footnote. Mara typed back, "Where are you?" The reply took longer this time. Not safe enough to say, safe enough to keep moving. A knock sounded at her door. Mara stood slowly, every sense sharpened. She didn't reach for anything. Through the peephole, she saw two plainclothes officers and a man in a gray suit holding a folder. City Legal Affairs. She opened the door. "Detective Ellison," the man said evenly. "We're here to execute a court order." Mara stepped aside without protest. The officers moved past her, methodical, respectful, already cataloging the space with their eyes. The man in the suit didn't enter. He remained in the doorway, as if unwilling to cross a line. "This isn't punitive, you understand that?" "Yes," Mara replied. "It's preventative." He didn't deny it. As they disconnected her laptop and collected her phone, Mara felt a strange calm settle over her. This was the moment the system always relied on, the moment when pressure replaced principle. Her burner phone vibrated silently in her pocket. Jonah again. "This is it. If you wait, they win." Mara met the man's eyes. "Am I being detained?" "No," he said, "but we recommend you remain available." She nodded. "Of course." When they left, her apartment felt hollowed out, like a place that had already been abandoned. She sat on the couch and pulled the burner phone free. "What's left?" she typed. The response came almost immediately. The audio. Mara closed her eyes. The 7-second recordings. The compliance proof. The part of the protocol no one had been brave enough to release yet. "If that goes public," Jonah continued, "there's no spin. No deniability." Mara stared at the blank wall ahead of her. She could already hear it. The breathing. Steady and human. Stripped of context and narrative. "They'll come for you," Jonah added. Hard. Mara typed one word. "When?" There was a pause. Then, "Now." Her burner phone rang. A number she didn't recognize. She answered. "This is Mara Ellison," she said. A woman's voice replied, calm but urgent. "Detective Ellison, this is Special Agent Ruiz with the Federal Oversight Task Group. We need to speak with you immediately." Mara looked at the phone in her hand. At the door her devices had left through. At the city beyond her window, already reshaping the story. "Agent Ruiz," she said, "I think you're already listening." Silence on the line. Mara straightened. "This case doesn't end quietly," she said, "and it doesn't end with me disappearing." The agent exhaled. "Then we're aligned." Mara ended the call and typed one final message to Jonah. "Send it." Outside, sirens wailed again, closer this time. The system had made its move. Now it would have to live with hers.
The audio went live at 11:42 p.m. No preamble, no commentary, no names attached. Just 7 seconds. Breathing. Human, unmistakable, steady enough to prove life, fragile enough to expose its theft. Each clip played back to back, separated only by timestamps and case identifiers that no one outside oversight circles could immediately decode. But no one needed to. The effect was instant and irreversible. By morning, national outlets had picked it up. Not because of the files, not because of the trust, but because sound stripped the narrative bare. You couldn't contextualize breathing. You couldn't spin it. You either heard it or you didn't. Oversight agencies moved faster this time. Warrants expanded. Subpoenas followed. Contractors vanished from public-facing roles. The Harrington Civic Trust suspended operations pending review, a phrase that fooled no one now. Mara sat in a federal interview room, hands folded on the table, the walls bare except for a small camera she pretended not to notice. Agent Ruiz listened without interruption as Mara laid out the structure, not as accusation, but as anatomy. Who moved money? Who shielded liability? Who benefited from silence? When Mara finished, Ruiz didn't thank her. She nodded once instead. "You understand," Ruiz said, "that what you exposed won't disappear, but it also won't collapse everything." "I know," Mara replied. "Systems don't die. They adapt." Ruiz leaned back. "So why do it?" Mara considered the question, then answered honestly. Because adaptation requires acknowledgement. The city didn't celebrate. There were no parades, no speeches, no public redemption arcs. What followed instead were quiet corrections. Settlements reached without press. Reviews conducted behind closed doors that for once stayed open long enough to matter. Mara's suspension was lifted quietly. Her record amended without apology. A promotion memo appeared in her inbox 3 days later, brief and procedural, elevating her into a role that came with fewer patrol hours and more authority than she had ever wanted. She accepted it anyway. Jonah Reed didn't come back to Ravenwood. He sent one message from an untraceable number. The system will remember this, so will I. Mara didn't reply. Some people didn't need closure. They needed distance. Weeks later, she stood alone in her new office as rain traced familiar patterns down the glass. The city below looked the same as it always had. Busy, unaware, alive. She understood now that justice wasn't about endings. It was about pressure. About making truth expensive enough that burying it cost more than exposing it. Her phone buzzed. New case file. Different department. Similar breathing. Mara closed the blinds, picked up her coat, and shut off the light. The silence protocol was over. But the work it had tried to erase was just beginning.